Hey lovely yes sisters, it's your girl Obaa Yaa back with another video. Thank you for tuning back in again today, and if you're new here, you're most welcome to the family. In today's video, I want to talk about finger detangling, the benefits and the disadvantages of finger detangling. So if you want to know exactly what it is I'm going to talk about, then stay tuned. So now, without any further ado, let's dive right into this video. So for those of you who have been on my channel long enough, you basically know that I am pro finger detangling. I've always been and I always will be. So finger detangling, what is finger detangling? Now that you know what finger detangling is or what finger detangling entails, let's dive into the benefits. So one of the benefits that comes with finger detangling is less breakage. You experience less breakage, of course, if you do it right, okay? This can go both ways. It can be an advantage, it can also be a disadvantage, but it is mostly supposed to be an advantage if you are doing it right, because you can feel for the knot when you're using your fingers. It's more gentle on your hair than using a comb, because with the comb you don't really feel the knot, you don't feel the tangles, and you're just combing through your hair just like that. But when you're finger detangling, you actually feel the knots and you are separating your hair, you're separating the knots from your strands, and then you're pulling the shed hair out. So yes, from my own experience, I can definitely say that I experience less shedding and less breakage when I finger detangle. If retaining length is an issue for you, finger detangling is one of the ways to retain more length, because it's more gentle on your hair, it's more gentle on your ends. Which leads me to my second point. It's more gentle on your ends and it's healthier for your ends. Because with the comb, you're ripping through your hair. Depending on your hair type, whether you have thick strands or thinner strands, some strands are able to withstand manipulation easier versus other strands. Some strands cannot handle external forces like combs and any other force manipulation. And if you're using your fingers, if you're gentle enough, you prevent your ends from breaking off, which will not lead to split ends. And if you prevent split ends, you're able to retain length. Length is something that you can only see if you're able to retain the hair as it's growing every month. And the amount of hair one grows depends on you. It can be half an inch, it can be an inch. I don't know, it just depends on the individual. But by the way we handle our hair, we tend to inhibit the amount that we are able to retain. Let's say we're growing half an inch a month, but we are breaking off half an inch. We're not going to see anything. You're breaking off more than you can retain, then it will take longer for you to get to your desired length. You can only see length if your ends are healthy, because the ends of our hair are the oldest. The ends of our hair were once here and then they grew down. So that means if you want to keep your hair long, you have to keep the ends intact, right? Exactly. So by being gentle with the ends, using your fingers is one of the ways to be gentle with your ends, because you can really feel for knots and your finger is less damaging. Because with the combs, we do scrape off some of our cuticle layers a little bit here and there. Like there's a little amount of damage that occurs anytime we brush our hair or we comb our hair. And like I said, depending on your hair strands, you might have more cuticle layers and you get away with it. But if you have less cuticle layers, there's nothing much to protect your hair and you're chipping away at the protective layers. And since your ends are the oldest, they tend to lose their cuticle layers quicker and faster compared to the new growth, because typically the new growth or the length of the hair has more cuticle layers compared to the hair on your ends because it's older. So finger detangling, in my opinion, helps to preserve the health of your ends if done properly. There is less tension, there's less pulling. Yes, because we know that when we are combing our hair, we are like this and we are combing, and there is tension on your hair and there's tension on your scalp as well. And for those people who are tender-headed, that can be like a torture, I should say. detangling their hair, especially if their hair is matted, or yeah, if they have to go through the detangling process. It's a painful process despite being gentle, because their scalp is just tender and it affects them more. So if you're using your fingers, you're not really applying so much tension to your hair, because you're not like trying to comb through your hair. You're typically separating the strands from each other and separating the knots from each other, so there is not really much tension happening, which is more beneficial to your scalp and your hair. The tension from holding your hair and combing can also lead to breakage as well, which can be prevented if you're using your fingers to detangle. So that is why I feel like that is also an advantage, or that is also a benefit if you use your fingers. There is less tension, there is less pulling, which in turn prevents pain and which won't lead to unnecessary breakage from the tension and the pulling. However, like everything in life, there are two sides to it. So even though there are benefits to finger detangling, there are also a few disadvantages. Like for me personally, disadvantage to finger detangling is that it's more time consuming. Yes, at least for me. Maybe for someone else it's not the case, but for me, I've come to realize, I've seen that it takes more time to finger detangle than using a comb. It's a no-brainer that that's the fact, because obviously if you're combing your hair, you're just going through like that, and then you're done. But with finger detangling, you're actually separating the strands section by section, strand per strand per strand, to get the shed hair out and to get the tangles out, to get the knots out, which of course is why it's more time consuming. And that is a disadvantage in the sense that if you have other things to do, if your hair is long, if you have children, if you have work, if you don't have so much time on your hands, it's not something that you can be spending hours and hours and hours and hours to do. And then because of that, you can easily slip into rushing through. If you're finger detangling, it can be more frustrating because it's taking so long. You get to a point where you're tired of it, and then you start doing the wrong things, which I'll get into soon. Another disadvantage with finger detangling is that you can actually accumulate tangles or miss some. Typically with finger detangling, you can't really get everything out of your hair. You can't get all shed hair out, because with a comb, you comb and it grabs the hair and just combs it out. But with finger detangling, you have to like pull through each section, and unless you have the patience of a I don't know, like you really have time and you're taking multiple breaks depending on the length of your hair. If your hair is long as mine, tailbone length hair, trust me, you will always find tangles in your hair. Like for me, I know I can't fully detangle my hair to the max with my fingers, and I know this, and that is why I have to be cautious. I know what my hair can handle and what not. After some time, I have to use a comb, okay, which I'll get into. It's like I'm ahead of myself. Anywho, tangles do accumulate. It can lead to more tangles because there's still shed hair accumulated, and then your hair wraps around it, and that can lead to more tangles if not taken care of properly. If you are rushing through the process, if you're not giving yourself enough time, if you're not mindful of the fact that shed hair is still in your hair, because you will not be able to get everything out, it can lead to more damage on the long run. It's important to work in smaller sections, because with that you are actually able to feel for the knots, feel for tangles, and to get a lot of the shed hair out. If you take a section that is too big, the probability of missing knots and shed hair is higher, because when you take bigger sections, the knots and the shed hair can just hide in between the thicker sections, and you would definitely miss it. So I would advise to work in smaller sections, in as much as that is more time consuming. In the long run, it's healthier for your hair to prevent bigger knots and tangles from forming. Secondly, make sure your fingernails aren't chipped, because if your fingernails are chipped, your hair strands will definitely get trapped in the areas where your fingers are chipped, and you'll cause more breakage. As you're pulling your fingers through your hair, you are ripping out your hair and breaking your hair and causing more harm. So make sure that you file your nails, and if you have acrylic nails or press-on nails, make sure that there isn't any gap between your nail bed and the nail itself. or the press on nails, because that gap, your hair strand will get stuck in those gaps as you're pulling your fingers through, and it will cause breakage because you're actually pulling your hair. So be mindful of the state of your fingernails to prevent breakage and snagging. After a while, it is important to use a comb because, like I said previously, with finger detangling only, you're not really able to get every single shed hair out of your hair. And over time, if you're not mindful of the sections, the shed hair might accumulate and cause tangles and might cause knots, which would be more difficult to get out later. So depending on your hair type, it might take longer until you actually need a comb, or you might need a comb more frequently. That is if you are only finger detangling. If you are only finger detangling, then I would advise to use a comb, like I say, every 2 or 3 months to really get your hair back to have a clean slate to work with again. You're using the comb, like let's say 3 times in a year, and you're still reaping the benefits of finger detangling. So that in that case, once you've combed your hair, you have a clean slate to start with. And once you start finger detangling again, it's actually easier to start from pre-detangled hair. Like, it's easier to start finger detangling when your hair is actually detangled, when your hair is properly detangled with a comb. And from that point on forward, keep on finger detangling until in 2 or 3 or 4 months time. It depends on how you wear your hair. If you wear your hair out more often, then you would require a comb much earlier. If you wear your hair in protective style more often, you might not need a comb as frequently. And lastly, of course, it's important to be patient. If you are rushing through the process of finger detangling, the probability of causing more harm is high. And that is why, even when dealing with natural hair generally, it's important not to do your hair when you are in a hurry, when you are under pressure or stressed out. It's important not to do your hair. Just leave your hair and do it another day when you have more time on your hand, when you're feeling relaxed and you're not rushing through the process. So be patient when handling your hair generally, and especially when finger detangling, because it's more time consuming. Make sure you're relaxed, make sure you're patient, and you will reap the benefits of finger detangling. My way of finger detangling my hair is sectioning off my hair, of course, into as much sections that I need and breaking that section down even further. And the thing about the way I finger detangle, the way I use the finger detangling to my advantage is that despite using a comb, I always start off with finger detangling my hair. My last step is always combing my hair. So by the time I'm combing my hair, there isn't really much knots for me to comb out, and I'm actually just combing out the shed hair. So that's my form of mixing, or it's a hybrid form that I found that works best for me. Just because so many people preach about finger detangling doesn't mean it works for everybody. It's just the same way with people say wash and goes is work with their hair, and they can do wash and goes every single day and they are fine. If I was to try that, oh gosh, my hair will be go from tailbone to ear length in just like in a month, in the space of 2 months or 3 months. Yeah, latest 6 months mark, you'll be like, where's all the hair? My hair will break off. If you look at my hair wrongly, you can just form a knot. That's how my hair works. So I can't do wash and goes. So I'm just saying all this to say that different things work for different people, and finger detangling might not be for you, but you can just do what works for you, and that's also fine. It's not by force. Yeah, it's not by force. So guys, that's it for today's video. I've come to the end of my video. Let me know in the comment section down below how many of you actually finger detangle and the progress you've seen with finger detangling. And if you don't finger detangle, what do you do? What works for you? So leave everything in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and to subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the notification bell so that you are notified when my next video comes up. I love you guys so much. See you again in my next video. Stay blessed, stay healthy, and stay safe. It is your girl, Obaa Yaa. Obaa Yaa. Bye.